Hi guys, welcome back to Sports with Mono and Mono. It's 2/11/23 here with my partner Steve, who's got his Emmett Smith jersey on today.
Yeah.
I guess that's a nod to the Super Bowl, right?
I'm gonna forget you said it's an Emmett Smith jersey, folks.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was a Roger Staubach.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
My bad. My bad.
My idol.
I like him too, actually. But thanks for joining us, folks. And this is our Saturday edition of Sports with Mono and Mono. And Steve, let's jump right into it. Our monologue is sponsored by Coriano Trucking of Summerhill, New York.
Yes, it is.
Yep. And Steve, so I think I have the monologue this week, and it's this whole ridiculous story of Brett Favre. And you and I have always talked about quality broadcasting. And I saw a piece on Real Sports on HBO on this thing. This guy is ridiculous. I can't believe there is literally no charges against this guy. And now he's filing lawsuits against, the attorney, the accounting guy, I guess, right, in the state of Mississippi. He is dirty, dirty, dirty. So if you haven't seen this little special, this will fill you in on all the details of how corrupt and almost disgraced that Brett Favre is in Mississippi. He was an absolute idol in that state, and he just took away from the people that needed it the most. And he keeps denying it, but they literally have all these text messages. I mean, just corrupt beyond belief. And, what a joke that, he's filing lawsuits for defamation of character type stuff. It's unbelievable to me. And I can't believe there's no charges against this guy. But you know what? This is a story we've seen 100 times, right? The guy at the pinnacle of his career, and then he just wavers into this world of corruption. And this is his fingerprints are all over this gun, just to use a metaphor on this. And I just wanted your thoughts on it, and that's the monologue this week.
Listen, Brett Favre, the football player, Hall of Famer.
No denying
correct. I wasn't always a big Brett Favre fan, to be honest with you. However, this story broke a few months ago.
Yeah.
And again, when we're talking stealing from the poor, so Mississippi obviously is one of those states that
it's horrible.
It's horrible. But when you're stealing in cahoots with the top government officials in the state to steal from the welfare fund in order to what? Fund a new volleyball facility because his daughter is going to Southern Mississippi, his alma mater.
Yep.
And Brett Favre, Wrangler commercials and, Copper Tone and all this other nonsense. Brett Favre's got a ton of money. It just goes to show you the character of Brett Favre. And now that his hand is literally caught in the cookie jar several times with these texts, and if you do read the text, folks, if you haven't researched the story, please do. You'll find that Brett Favre is a disgraceful human being.
It was like Brett Favre
really
walked into a bank to rob it and wrote on the back of his own personal check, "Please fill this bag with money." That's literally how bad it is.
Listen, it just goes to show his character. I'm not going to waste any more time on this. Brett Favre has disgraced himself.
I just think people needed to know.
Well, yeah, but Brett Favre has disgraced himself, and it's just tough to come back. I believe charges should be filed, will be filed. I don't know what's taking so long.
Hopefully.
And now that you have him with defamation and all.
But I found this. The interesting thing is this one guy, like literally a bookworm, accountant type guy, said, "This is unbelievable. I mean, this is unbelievable." And all he's doing is trying to make it right for the people of Mississippi.
Correct.
And Brett Favre is now going to sue him. It's just so absurd. I had to bring it up because if you haven't seen that Real Sports episode on HBO with Brian Gumbel, which we always think is quality broadcasting, watch it. And then if you have any doubts about whether this guy was involved in this corruption, right? That's the only way to put it.
It's
Corruption,
stealing.
steal.
And there's one text in particular Brett Favre has to literally the governor's office.
And I
saying,
know which text you're talking
Right.
about. Right?
Hey,
Is there any way they could find out about
right,
this?
nobody can find out about this, correct?
Yep. So anyway, that was my monologue. It was just festering on my mind all week, and I had to bring it up. So check that Real Sports episode out.
Yeah.
It's great. So Steve, we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. And I wanted to first give a shout out to one of my former Niagara Purple Eagles friend and Paul Lawless from Rockville Center, New York. And I spoke to Paul last night, and I hope he's listening today. We've had some funny times, and this guy's very funny. So, Paul, I hope you listen to the show. He said,
Funny how? Like he amuses you?
What do you mean funny? No, seriously. Anyway, so Paul, welcome to the show. Steve, let's move on. What's the big story of the weekend?
The Rangers trading for Vladimir Tarasenko?
I don't know if that's the top
Wow.
story. There's a football game tomorrow.
There
Let's put
is.
it that way.
There is.
Lots going on with this. So, I don't know where all the money is going and how DraftKings is involved, but the Eagles are going into the Super Bowl against Patrick Mahomes, 1.5-point favorites, probably moved by game time, right?
Yeah, if it does. It might not.
Whatever, but it is the big game and a lot of stories and a lot of things going on behind the scenes. And Steve and I talked last week about our picks, and we were flat out, let's make our picks last week, and we're not wavering. At least I'm not wavering. We're going with the Chiefs. And Patrick Mahomes, shame on me if you bet against a kid that just wants to win, has the determination to win this game, and he's going up obviously against a great Philadelphia Eagles team. A lot of talent on the field. Jalen Hurts. Listen, this isn't going to be his last time, right? Moving into that kind of elite category. He'll be back in the Super Bowl, but I'm sticking with it, and I'm going with Patrick Mahomes. Give me some thoughts on the game.
Well, first of all, you just made a bold statement. I think of Dan Marino. Dan Marino made the Super Bowl his second year or whatever it was. Never went back. All right. So it's no guarantee to get back to the big
Of course
game.
not.
Patrick Mahomes has won this game. Andy Reid's the coach of the Chiefs. I've been on record saying the Chiefs are going to win at least 2 in 5 years. I think I might have even said 3 and 6, something like that.
Something like that.
This to me has the feel of the Eagles playing the Patriots 5 years ago, meaning the Patriots going into that game were prohibitive favorites, right? Why? Because they're the New England Patriots. This to me has the same kind of feel. Philly has played great, okay? They deserve to be the favorites, okay? But I'm not betting against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Also, Steve Spagnuolo is the defensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs. And guess what, folks? He was a defensive coordinator for the New York Giants during the 16-0 New England Patriots. And guess what? He came up with a defensive scheme and shut down Tom Brady. All right. I'm just putting in these factors that,
Of course,
the Kansas City Chiefs have been here. They've done it. Patrick Mahomes has 2 weeks to get healthy from that ankle. You saw in the last play, in that last drive, what he did. I'm not going against Mahomes. I think the general consensus is the Eagles are the favorites here, and they deserve to be, like I said. But, folks, I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs here. Am I biased a little bit, being, my disdain for Philadelphia?
we can't. I was hoping you wouldn't even bring that up.
We do
but-
not factor that in, but I need to, for the record,
because this is a
Remind the
business.
audience.
This is a business. And yes, if we thought the Philadelphia Eagles could beat Patrick Mahomes, we would take them. But I don't, and you don't, and I think it's just going to be hopefully a good game.
it's going to be a good game. I mean, there's super talent on both sides of the ball here.
That's what a lot of people are neglecting to say, that the Philadelphia Eagles, their defense is loaded. We know that. They got a lot of talent on the field, but so do the Kansas City Chiefs. And Mahomes and Brett Kelsey, right? I mean, unbelievable.
Travis Kelce.
Travis, I'm sorry. But these guys have been there before. They've done it, and I think they're going to come up and do it again.
Listen, the Chiefs are banged up at wide receiver. A lot of guys bringing that up to me. I get it. I don't care who's catching the ball. Really? Pat,
Michael Garvey, welcome back. There he is.
Hey, Mike. It's good to hear from you.
Yep.
And we couldn't agree more. But Patrick Mahomes, I'm looking for the Chiefs when they start the game offensively. They have to establish the run. But you're going to look for Mahomes for these short, quick passes to get the ball going. Okay? And once they set that up, if they can establish play action with Patrick Mahomes, he's lethal. He's absolutely lethal. I'm sticking with the Chiefs here. I'm not wavering. I'm going Chiefs.
But Steve, there's one player on. A lot of people say, they don't measure up against Philadelphia talent-wise. But on that defensive line for the Kansas City Chiefs, this guy Chris Jones, what a year he's had, right? I mean, he's turned into quite a player in this league, and he could be a factor in this game. He could rattle.
He has to be a factor.
He does.
I mean, Chris Jones has to play like Chris Jones for the Chiefs to win.
They do.
I mean, we're talking defensively here. We've just been really kind of harping on Kansas City's offense here, but defensively, Kansas City. They have to limit. They have to have the 3 and outs. Okay, they can't. And again, Spagnuolo is no idiot. They know Hurts can run the ball and he can throw the ball. Okay, which is a lethal combination to defend against. And I don't care what team it is.
And
right?
Spagnuolo and Andy Reid have been working 24 hours a day.
Right? Yeah. So when it comes from a coaching perspective, I'll take Andy Reid over Nick Sirianni until he proves himself. Any day of the week.
And listen, give credit to Sirianni.
I am.
He's gotten them this far and so forth, but he's going up. And I do believe that Hurts and Sirianni will be back. I'm not saying they're going to win a Super Bowl in the next 2 years, but I think tomorrow they're going to run up against Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes.
It should be an evenly matched game. But we say this in every Super Bowl that we go to. Really?
We do. We do.
I could throw San Francisco, Denver in '89 or something. The score was 55-10.
San Francisco, Cincinnati, right? That was another blowout.
Or Atlanta. I mean, forget about it. The Patriots losing 28-3, and then coming back.
Yep.
So it's easy to make a Super Bowl prediction. Is my point. Let's see how it plays out.
Yep.
But I got to pick a team. I'm sticking with Kansas City.
Me too.
Now, I want to bring up a quick story about Kansas City. I don't know if people have seen this. I don't even know if you've seen this. But when you watch Kansas City's home games, there's a super fan there, and he wears this wolf mask.
No, I don't know.
Okay, well, you're going to look it up after the show, but a lot of people know of this. So he's the super fan, quote unquote, for the Chiefs, and he wears a black Chiefs hat with this wolf mask. So he was in the news in December because he traveled to like 4 road games. Okay. So the bank robberies in each of the 4 cities that the Chiefs were in, right?
Don't tell me the Wolfman was
the Wolfman is the bank robber who funded his super fandom.
By robbing banks?
By robbing banks. And he got caught in December. He's been in jail. His bail was $100,000. It got reduced.
I didn't know where you were going with this.
It's a true story, folks. $100 bail got reduced to $80. He just got out
to go to the game.
I don't know if he's going to the game. I don't know if he's got the balls.
Who, the Chiefs bailed him out?
No, the Chiefs didn't. But here's another kicker. He placed 2 future bets in June. One that Mahomes would win the MVP for the regular season. It's paid out. He put $5,000 down, won $45,000, and he's got the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl. If that hits, I think that's another $80,000.
Oh, that's right.
But people look this up. It's a funny story. Chiefs super fan bank robbery. Side note, it's
wow,
it's too funny. I had to bring it up.
All right, so listen, before we move off the Super Bowl, I just wanted to tell a story that I had I went to a Philadelphia Eagles game. Our sister Mary Ellen set me up with tickets in the luxury box, and that was the game I got to sit with Steve Sable, the late president of NFL Films, and it was great. And I wasn't subjected because I was in this luxury box to sitting outside, with my, Vikings jersey or Giants jersey, right? And it was an unbelievable time. I sat with Steve Sable, the president of NFL Films, for 3 hours talking football. And it was such a great experience for me. And I wanted to tell you, it was against the Vikings. You know who the coach for the Vikings was, Steve?
Probably Jerry Burns.
Jerry Burns, AKA Burgess Meredith, right? Penguin from Batman.
Yeah.
But I had a wonderful experience. I also had a horrible experience going to a Flyers Ranger game. So that's kind of why I can't root for the Philadelphia Eagles, but this is a business. And if I actually thought they could beat Mahomes and team, that's the red I would have go. But I just wanted to bring that Steve Sable story up because it was for you and I, sports guys, talking with the president of NFL Films for 3 hours. And I remember him saying, I'm shocked at how much you know, how much detail you know. And I said, well, that's why I'm going to do a sports show called Sports with Mano and Mano 30 years later. Great story, though, right? Couple other things, Steve, before we move off the NFL. You have a new offensive coordinator in Dallas.
Shoddy.
What's your thoughts?
I'm fine with that. I mean, he was a consultant with the Cowboys this past year.
I haven't heard his name mentioned in 5 years.
I mean, he's the son of Marty Schottenheimer, so obviously he's got the stigma of can't win the big game type of thing, right? But we talked about McCarthy. McCarthy's probably going to still call the plays for Schottenheimer. He was a Jets offensive coordinator. Did a good job. I mean, Brian Schottenheimer
did a good job. What'd they do? He was there.
Oh,
Brian
Schottenheimer is.
I'm not saying he's not a quality guy. It's just kind of one of those recycled names that are coming
well,
back.
They're all recycled.
I know.
But I'm okay with it.
Couple other quick things. Brian Flores, defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. How about that? How does that affect his lawsuit? Doesn't seem like,
Oh, he's not the head coach.
I know, but that's maybe in
Listen,
the works.
Brian Flores most likely will be a head coach.
And we like him. I don't dismiss what a good job he did in Miami. No question.
Good move.
Yep. Yep.
We don't hear about the lawsuit much anymore, do we?
Right. So D'Amico Ryans takes the head coaching job in Houston. Steve Wilkes fills the job in San Francisco. And of course, this is a big weekend, right? 4 days. Aaron Rodgers is going into darkness, so he's going to figure out
soon now.
Did it start already?
Oh, yeah. This is probably day 4.
Oh, because he didn't want to miss the Super Bowl.
Right. I got my phone programmed for an alert as soon as Aaron comes into light.
What's going to come out of there?
Aaron is a douche, is what it is.
He's turned into one.
He is a douche. I still think the Jets are all in on him.
I do too.
I think it's going to happen.
I do too.
The fallback for the Jets, of course, would be Derek Carr, but
he's going to New Orleans.
I don't know that.
He's down there signing as a contract now. Oh, well, I could care less. I mean,
I don't know if that's the case. I know he's talked to New Orleans. Rodgers could wind up with the Raiders. Who knows? But we'll find out once Aaron gets back. Yeah,
it's going to be this like moment of clarity. Right? That's what it's all about.
It's like Tony Soprano taking peyote. Soprano.
No, in Vegas.
Yeah.
Good one. Anyway, so that's enough with the NFL for this weekend. So enjoy the Super Bowl, and
we're talking Hall of Fame.
Oh, I'm going to get to that in a second.
Okay. It's NFL, so let's stay with it.
And I was hoping we were going to have our loyal listener, James Walsh, as your monologue was last week. We're going to go down the list.
We are.
And I'm glad you brought that up. I almost neglected to bring that up. So let's go down the list.
Joe Klecko is in the Hall of Fame, folks.
And Joe, we have been campaigning for you for 20 years. And I met Joe Klecko, I told you a couple of times, and every time I met him, I said, I can't believe you're not in the Hall of Fame, and Howie Long is, and he laughed. Well, he's now, I don't know why it took 20 years, but he's in the Hall of Fame. So Joe Klecko, yes. Darrell Revis.
Well, I watched highlights just to refresh myself with Klecko yesterday. I'm still just miffed how long it took for this guy so long to make the Hall of Fame. I couldn't be happier.
Me too.
He's such a well-liked guy.
Me too.
And congratulations.
You know, and having met him in person, he is that nice guy, and couldn't be happy for him. So let's go down the list, Steve.
Hall of Famer Darrell Revis, first ballot. Yes.
Yes. Joe Thomas.
Yes.
Yes. Joe Klecko, obviously. Rondé Barber.
Yes. No, listen, I looked at his stats yesterday.
They're impressive.
No, he's first ballot Hall of Fame. He didn't miss the game in 15 years, 65 interceptions, Super Bowl champion.
It's a pretty good resume, I guess.
He's not Hall of Famer.
Me, I'd say maybe he could wait. If Joe Klecko had to wait 20 years, he could wait one.
Rondé Barber doesn't deserve to wait. Well deserved.
Okay, we move on. Zach Thomas.
Yes.
No.
And my coworker Franco worked.
No.
Why? Led the league in tackles for like 5 consecutive years.
Okay. But
okay,
no.
What?
I didn't see him as the Hall of Fame linebacker,
He didn't play under no defense. Okay? Zach Thomas.
I'm going to know.
I'm talking to the individual, Zach Thomas. He didn't have the horses around him. He had Jason Taylor, okay, Patrick Surtain. That's three guys with 11 on defense.
And by the way,
Zach Taylor to me is
by the way, Jason Taylor. No,
I don't think so.
But he got in on his first ballot.
I'm more Zach Thomas. I don't have an issue.
If he waited 5 years, 20 years, like Carl Mecklenburg of the Denver Broncos, who belongs in the Hall of Fame before Zach Thomas. Next, DeMarcus Ware.
Absolutely. I said last year he should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. Absolute Hall of Fame. Congratulations, DeMarcus. And I'm not, again, folks, saying because he's a Dallas Cowboy.
You're not being
look at it. No, look at his numbers. His sack totals he's third all time.
Okay. And
Hall of Famer, first ballot.
Listen, we always put it into perspective. If Dan Hampton is in, then yes, DeMarcus Ware, first ballot.
There's no debate for me with DeMarcus Ware.
But Steve, here's another guy. We talked about how long Joe Klecko had to wait to get in.
Yeah.
Chuck Howley.
Absolutely. Another beloved Cowboy.
Hall of Fame, Chuck Howley?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Right. The only MVP in Super Bowl history from a losing team.
Of course.
Big interception guy, fumble recoveries, tough, and he's still alive. Thank goodness that Chuck Howley, in his advanced age, his late 80s.
Couldn't be happier.
Couldn't be happier. He's going to, at least he knows. Hopefully he doesn't pass before the ceremony.
And we were just young enough or old enough to watch that game against the Baltimore Colts. And
the original number 54 for the Cowboys.
Yep.
Randy White, of course, wore that number. But Chuck Howley, well-deserving Hall of Fame. And yeah, the senior committee, I do got to say, has righted some wrongs, I guess is the way to say it. And Chuck Howley is absolutely wrong.
Oh, thank goodness. But I'm telling you, this guy, this is 40, maybe 50 years he didn't get in. It's absurd.
It's absurd.
And one other one, Air Coryell.
Air Coryell.
Right?
And Don Coryell passed away in 2010.
Ooh, that long ago?
Yeah, wow. He was old. But Don Coryell, innovative offense. The 70s when we grew up and watched football, he was the head coach of the Cardinals. Don Coryell, then the Chargers. Well-deserving Hall of Fame. Another guy, I think, from a coach perspective, waited too long. Never won a Super Bowl. It's probably what kind of delayed.
Kept them out.
Kept them out. But Don Coryell, well-deserved.
And listen, Dan Fouch, you should say thank you to Don Coryell because you're in the Hall of Fame because of Don Coryell.
Right, and another guy is Ken Riley from the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, from the old Sunoco football book back in
Riley
1971.
For the Bengals.
Played like 15 years.
He did. Ken Riley passed away in 2020. Unfortunate that he passed before knowing.
They made him wait.
He was on the All-Decade team for the 70s. The Bengals were good, man. Kenny Anderson. And Kenny Anderson is another senior guy, I think. Ken Anderson, I think deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
Well, he certainly better get in the Hall
He
of
was the
Fame,
quarterback for the Bengals, folks.
and he certainly should get in the Hall of Fame before guys that are probably coming up like Phil Simms and that kind of player. I think he is. Steve, he's in the media. He's going to the Hall of Fame. Anyway,
but Ken Anderson, folks, was the first quarterback to ever complete 70% of his passes during the regular season, and he was a very, very.
He had a good mustache too.
Good mustache. But again, I just want to mention Ken Riley. Some people don't know who Ken Riley is. We certainly do.
We do. And Ken Anderson was number 14.
That is correct. Ken Anderson.
Excellent. So enjoy the Super Bowl, folks. Lots going on in the NFL, and we unfortunately, and we're gonna nail this coffin shut today. The NBA in this trade situation with the Brooklyn Nets. I'm just gonna say this: it's out of control. That these guys, Kevin Durant signed a max contract with the Nets, 2 years ago? And now he said he can walk into his boss's office and say, I want to go somewhere else. And it happens. And Kyrie Irving, and it's the only time I'm going to mention his name again for as long as gets his free pass and gets to go play with Luka Doncic in Dallas because he just walked into his boss's office and said, I want to be traded.
To the Nets' credit, listen, he wanted to go to the Lakers, and they said, you're not going to the Lakers. You're going to Dallas.
But I'm talking
about the only leverage that they had. And is it leverage? No. But it's time to get rid of these pieces of crap.
Okay.
Just get them out the door.
And
they got assets back. So.
But I'm gonna tell you this. The people I feel got hurt the most by this is the fans. These young 12, 13-year-old kids that idolize these guys. And Kevin Durant signs his 4-year, $40 million contract, whatever. And so his father says, I'm gonna get us tickets to the games. And now that's gone. Right? And Kyrie Irving, same thing. James Harden, same thing. You know those three, the big three that were going to bring 2 or 3 titles to Brooklyn, played 19 games together. And now they blew it up, but they were on the verge. If Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant were in this, they had a legitimate shot at possibly winning a title. Maybe they couldn't get through the Bucks. I know where you're going. I see the eyes rolling,
The
but
three malcontents. They can't coexist. It was never going to work.
But why is this happening? Why is the league allowing this to happen?
Because they're making tons of money. They don't care.
I know that.
But, I know, but that's it. It's not that complicated.
What about the fans?
What about the fans? They still come. Madison Square Garden's been sold out. The Knicks have been terrible for 30 years.
Right, but what about the father who bought, tickets for 6 games to see Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and now he's got to go see Ben Simmons and Speedy Claxton?
Well, Ben Simmons is not going to be long for the Nets. This guy is terrible.
He doesn't belong in the league, to be quite honest.
God, I'm so disappointed in this guy. He's another malcontent.
But it's the fan base that I feel is most affected by this, and
they build it down and start over.
But we talk, Westbrook got traded, whatever. Like,
hey, John Wall.
And they're right, John Wall.
Who cares? I mean, who cares?
I could start for an NBA team before John Wall right now.
Really? So the NBA trade deadline. I'm like, I don't care less. I couldn't care less who moves where, for what, to who, for what.
And
I could care less.
But I bring this up because I was starting to think when Kyrie Irving takes a sabbatical. He wants to go to the Caribbean for 3 months. How many games did Walt Frazier take off? How many games did Bill Bradley and Dave DeBusschere? But why not?
Well, because they were professional basketball players.
But that's my point. It's transformed into something beyond.
They took pride. They took pride in being.
You know what? That's
a member of a team, of building something, of winning championships.
Thank you.
That's it. It's not
perfect,
that complicated.
Perfect analogy. Pride. And these guys have none of it.
None.
And they're getting paid $40 million a year.
That's why they don't have any pride, because they're getting paid $40 million a year. and they get away with it time and time again.
You know,
And that's it. That's why I can't watch this.
me
I
either.
can't. And it pains me to even follow it.
But I'm going to
But
tell you.
that's our job.
But
It's
Steve,
to do
I want to bring this point up. There's one guy in this league that I absolutely could watch on a nightly basis, and it's Antetokounmpo.
Yeah.
I think the guy is so determined. He wants another. He doesn't want just one. He's not going to be LeBron and get 6 or 7 rings and be the all-time leading scorer, which, that
Well, yeah. Listen, you have to tip your cap to LeBron James. He's the
100%.
all-time leading scorer.
100%. I was going to bring that up.
Like him or not, we still have to acknowledge that. And he's not done. I mean, he'll probably finish with 40,000 points or something like that.
Yeah, and he's staying in the league for another 3 years till he gets to play with his son in Los Angeles.
Right, but
because he's the commissioner.
But personally, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who I got a revere,
Scoring machine.
right? I had zero interest in. I didn't even turn it on. I had every.
Then we're in the minority.
I had
because felt the same.
every chance to turn this on. I just couldn't do it. Right? But it doesn't mean I don't acknowledge that LeBron James deserves to be the scoring champion, because he is.
No question.
He hardly ever got hurt. He's got 4 rings, right? He's the commissioner of the NBA, all this nonsense.
Yep.
He's a billionaire.
Yep.
So, I don't begrudge LeBron James in anything. Okay? For the most part, he's a decent, good guy. He really is. For the most part. So congratulations.
No question.
But that's it. And I'm not discussing this going further. Like you said, Kyrie Irving, I'm never mentioning this guy's name. I could care less.
Agreed.
If he rots in Dallas, I don't care.
But I wanted
Kevin Durant, I don't care.
Exactly.
And I thought Durant was a good guy.
He was when he first came into this league. He was.
He's another malcontent. I turned on the Sixers Knicks last weekend, and I see the beard. And as soon as I see the beard take the floor, James Harden,
you changed the
I
channel.
changed the channel.
I know.
I can't watch it.
That's my brother. That's why I do it.
And I am not watching.
Exactly. But anyway, so I just wanted to bring this whole NBA, it's out of control. It's really out of control.
Well,
and that's why they're not getting fans like you and I to watch this, because
they don't care.
We're tired of it.
They don't care and we don't care. So it's a fair trade-off as far as.
Okay. Anyway, before I forget to mention, I just wanted to wish to our loyal listener, Michael Garvey, who sent us a comment before, had a birthday this past week.
Happy birthday, Mr. Garvey.
It was a milestone birthday, which I don't know if he wants me to let him know, but I'll give you a clue. I sent him a clip of Chuck Bednarik on the famous hit with Frank Gifford. And so I know what number Chuck Bednarik was, but there's a great clip of him. This guy was, as tough as nails.
He's a beast, Stanley. He's a
was.
Beast.
But Michael, happy birthday to you, buddy.
Happy birthday, Mr. Garvey.
Yep. So Steve, let's move on.
Tommy Nobis.
I don't know that Mike would have known who Tommy Nobis was. I only think you and my brother Thomas would know who number 60 was. Oh, you gave away the word. Yep. Anyway, so Steve, let's move on to hockey, right? We got through the All-Star break. We're in the second half of probably the toughest sport, longest season of all the major sports. Doesn't get the recognition, but the Rangers, they're like 18 or 19, 3 and
18
2.
and 4 or so in the last.
They won last night, though. They beat the Kraken last night.
But the Rangers made a smart move. Drury's been lying in wait pretty much all year. They got Vladimir Tarasenko, a rental, okay? But this guy is a playoff performer. He was a member of the 19 Stanley Cup champion.
2019 or something, maybe?
2019 Blues. Tarasenko is 31 or 32. Tarasenko is a playoff performer if he's healthy. And now they matched him up with Panarin, and he'll be on the top line. And you saw results immediately last night.
And for a rental, they got him for a bag of pucks and like 3 sticks.
They got a fair deal on this. And St. Louis picks up basically half his salary, which allows the Rangers to make another move for the deadline to bolster the team. This is a great thing. And listen, even though he's an unrestricted free agent, I'm hoping Tarasenko loves New York. I know he's been wanting to come here.
I'm surprised he
It was
only
just
had
a-
10 goals this year so
Well, they
far.
sat him out, and he wanted to get out of there. I don't look at that. He already got a goal last night.
He did.
I think it's a great move for the Rangers.
Yep. And listen, they like we talked about the Islanders not standing pat, getting Bo Horvat and so
And
forth.
then
So
signing him to an 8-year extension.
and this is
Great move.
exactly, and it was funny. Lou Lamoriello said it's too long and it's too much money, and he laughed about it. But and these hockey
Well, Lou won't be
players.
here in 8 years, folks.
But
We
think
can
about
guarantee
these
that.
with the money these guys are making compared to Kevin Durant
Yeah.
and Kyrie Irving, who make 8 million in hockey is off the charts, right? That kind of thing.
So Patrick Kane is disappointed. He's out in Chicago. He thought the Rangers were going to trade for him. It costs too much money. Patrick Kane was a head case early in his career. I'm not saying he is now.
He's got a couple of rings.
He's got injury problems. It costs too much money. Tarasenko was the way to go.
Yep.
And the trade deadline, it's still out there, so moves will be made.
Yep.
And look for the Bruins. This Timo Meyer is on San Jose, and they're looking to move him. This kid is a real good hockey player. I'm afraid of Boston maybe making a move for him, something like that. But the Colorado Avalanche is defending Stanley Cup champs. They're banged up. Landeskog is hurt. Bahar is hurt.
Yeah.
The East looks like this year.
You got to get through Boston.
Well, it looks like the Stanley Cup champ is going to come from the East this year because I think the Bruins, Rangers, Penguins, standard top team. Carolina Hurricanes are no joke by any stretch.
And there's a lot of young talent in this league. I watched the Kraken last night. This kid Beniers, this kid's going to be a superstar.
It's the second year for the Kraken. Ron Francis is in charge of them.
He is.
And they're playing great hockey year two. And they're doing it, they're building this foundation. And they're already ahead of the curve. This wasn't the Golden Knights coming out of the gate and they had the ability to snatch, 2-3 quality guys from each team.
Yeah.
And then, they make the Stanley Cup final in record time. But Seattle is going to be a good NHL franchise. Ron Francis is one of the greatest hockey minds out there. He's a tremendous player.
Oh my God, his resume. He's a Hall of Famer.
It's unquestionable.
So anyway, hockey, second half.
Devils are playing great. They're 33-14.
Yeah.
Jack Hughes is banged up a bit. But the Devils, they're out of the doldrums. They got good young talent. I didn't want to, forget them. But, they've made their turnaround.
Yep.
So it's back to the Rangers, Devils,
And you and I, when we talk about, if there's an NBA game or an NHL game on TV, we're going with the NHL.
Yeah.
Playoffs, different story. We'll watch some of the playoff games with the NBA, but regular season, I don't think so. But regular season in the NHL is awesome. Awesome. Steve, let's move on to a couple of random points of interest this week, which is sponsored, of course, by Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut. I wanted to bring this up because we actually touched on it already, this Aaron Rodgers and going into darkness thing. It's just so comical that and he's probably, like you said, coming to New York, but it's just, where did this guy go? I remember you and I watching on draft day, sitting there, and he just kept going pick after pick, and he's like, I'm not getting picked. And he seemed like a real good kid. But now he's, I don't know. Maybe he does find this enlightenment when he comes out of his box. But I just had to bring that up again because it kills me. A guy making this kind of money, and I don't know. He could dictate, just almost getting like the NBA. He can go wherever he wants, right? It's crazy. Anyway,
we touched on it.
We did.
I'm done commenting.
Yeah. Here's another one, Steve, and this was kind of caught me off guard. Jake McPhee retired in Major League Baseball, 13-year career. And what stood out to me, he has the most appearances in Toronto Blue Jays history. And I don't know if I've ever heard him. And we watch the Toronto Blue Jays play the Yankees 15 times a year.
Yeah, there's obscure guys like that. Again,
Wouldn't you said it was Dave Steve or somebody like that?
Yeah.
Jake McPhee?
Tom Henke or something like that.
Okay, either one.
Right, but listen.
That was funny though. I go,
No,
I have never even heard of him, and we
I've
must
heard
have
of
watched him pitch 10
I've
times.
heard of him. I mean, he would be my last guess as the most appearances in the Toronto Blue
100%.
Jays.
That's kind of a random point of
No,
interest,
it is.
right?
It is.
Here's another one. There was a high school basketball game on in Oklahoma. Final score 4-2. So this brings up the point, and the reason that it was intrigued me because I was flipping around the channel and I saw St. Joe's, our alma mater, playing Hackensack in the Bergen County Jamboree.
Right.
And I noticed, I go, I don't think I've ever been to a high school basketball game.
Wow.
First and foremost.
Shame on you.
Okay. But I go, there's no shot clock in high school basketball, and there's not, and that's why you got a 4-2 game in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that. Like I honestly thought, of course, there's a shot clock in basketball. I mean, in high school basketball, there was not.
I'm not surprised. I mean, we've heard scores where it's 160 to 8. You know, I mean, it's.
I just thought it was funny that
No.
high school basketball doesn't have a shot clock. I didn't know that.
No.
No.
You're right, Rob. That's a head shaker.
Okay. And Rob, of course, is, a big St. Mary's guy, and he never let us in on that. I didn't know about that. Another one, Steve, from College Hardwood, the women's UConn team lost 2 consecutive games for the first time
since the Lincoln administration.
Right. Not actually that far back, but 1993.
Yeah.
Now, what does that tell you about that program and what Gino Auriemma has done at that school? That's shocking.
That's right. It's a testament to UConn.
I think it was like 1,000 something plus games that they had never lost 2 in a row.
So South Carolina is defending champs.
Completely dominant right
Dawn
now.
Staley, she was in the news. And, Gino was complaining about how physical South Carolina is.
That's right.
Listen, it's spilt milk as far as I'm concerned with Gino, right? I'm serious. Listen,
Okay.
listen.
All right.
I'm a huge Gino guy. All right, but come on. All right, you lost back to back. Say, South Carolina, is king of the mountain right now. Take your lumps and play them in the playoffs.
So you know what this must mean. There was some backstory between the top recruits that he lost out on that went to South Carolina,
sure.
Right?
Right. There's animosity there.
But that's
they're both competitive.
That's a big game this weekend. They're going up against LSU. I think they're both undefeated, or at least LSU may have 1 loss. Or
South Carolina, most likely.
Yep.
I wanted to bring up the Pro Bowl games Sunday.
The flag football game.
Oh, God. An unfortunate. Now listen, I haven't watched the Pro Bowl in 30 years.
We used to love it, by the way.
We did.
When we were kids.
As a goof, I turned this on, and then when I see Snoop Dogg as the honorary captain, folks,
who was the other captain?
I don't know. Pete Davidson was there.
Pete Davidson.
Yeah. LaDainian Tomlinson might have been. Like, this is the format going forward. And listen, an 8-year-old kid doesn't know that. So if you're gonna take your 8-year-old kid, I get that.
Well, apparently they did, because it was like a sold-out stadium. Believe it or not.
But listen, as a parent, your 8-year-old kid, NFL, I get that. But as a 58-year-old adult, forget about it. Okay. And my point is that Roger Goodell gets into bed with this gambling, and it has the nerve, like Snoop Dogg is some role model. Are you kidding me? I mean, it really turns my stomach.
But look at the money they made on it.
And that's what it's about.
It is.
Because I can cry, whine, and everything. What's it about? The money.
And you know what, Steve?
But my point is, I turned this on, shook my head, and turned it right down.
Right. I didn't see one flag get ripped off, actually. But this whole, again, and one of our listeners, Diego, sent me this clip of again, we've talked about the NFL's position on denying these health benefits to former players again. And it just keeps getting swept under the rug. Another thing that another 10 former players have filed a lawsuit against the National Football League. And I've always said this, you have always said this, these guys deserve to be taken care of. And the way the NFL turns their back on them is still, it's such a head scratcher to me. We're all psyched about the Super Bowl, but
About the
behind the
money.
scenes, I know, but this is completely
Right.
just
It's
a bad
about doing
optic.
the right thing. I mean, what about that? Now, Roger's too busy.
That's my point.
Yeah, Roger's too busy with meetings with DraftKings, the official sponsor of the NFL, gambling and negotiating with
Making 50 million a year,
And,
and these guys, John Mackey, can't get
and
benefits paid for the work he did,
Right.
making the league what it is today.
right, and paying Snoop Dogg more than probably an appearance fee to show up at this nonsense.
Shame
Then
on
take
you.
care of 10 NFL players like a John Mackey, who basically gave their whole bodies to this sport.
Yep.
And all they're asking for is the family to be taken care of.
That's all.
That's it. Do the right thing. But no, I'm in a meeting with Snoop Dogg. Roger Goodell's credibility for me is so, he can't come back from me. And he makes $60 million a year, and he makes me sick.
Ugh, I know, but Steve and I and Sports with Mono and Mono have always advocated for the former players that have gone through these just ridiculous health issues due to the sport that they made this league make all the money they're making today. I had to bring it up.
Yep.
So, Steve, we're going to move. It's kind of a good week, actually, when we put that in perspective, our notable passing segment. And you can go first, or I can go first. There's one of the big names, and it's a show business guy. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Burt Bacharach. It's my Austin Powers. Go ahead.
Correct. I had to watch it yesterday. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Burt Bacharach. From Austin Powers. And I actually watched a clip.
But by the way, folks, this is a tribute to Burt Bacharach, who
Absolutely.
passed away at 94 years old, and we'll talk about his resume in a second.
Yeah, but I watched a clip of him on 60 Minutes from 1990. And Burt Bacharach, and again, why he was on Austin Powers is because, he was Austin was frozen in the 60s, and Burt, really in the 60s was where, early 70s made it.
He was the John Williams of scoring movies and
then
music, right?
disappeared for 10 years and fallen out with Hal David.
Yes.
His other partner,
Yep.
so on and so forth. But resurrected his career. He's married to Angie Dickinson. Oh my God, just that alone, Burt.
Oofa.
But died at 90. Great career. Raindrops are falling on my head.
94.
94, excuse me.
Yep.
His collaborations with Dionne Warwick were, her songs.
Wrote the score for the Casino Royale James Bond movie in 1967.
Correct.
Right?
A well-liked guy.
Theme from Arthur.
Absolutely.
That was Burt.
Burt Bacharach, great career, well-revered composer, just he's
Musical genius.
musical genius.
Yep.
And I was sad to hear, but 94, it's a good run for Burt.
You bet.
And R.I.P. Burt Bacharach.
I mean, we only touched on what this guy put on the map here. I mean, this guy was all over entertainment and music. And, we talked about it before the show. I wasn't aware you did a collaboration with Elvis Costello.
Yeah, there's a record at a time. The name is, just Google it. Elvis Costello, revered Burt Bacharach. They got together and they did a whole album together. And Elvis Costello, if you watch or hear some of his comments about Burt Bacharach, what a musical genius was, and like his lifelong ambition, Elvis Costello, was to collaborate with Burt Bacharach. So I'm going to find that album actually.
And why we brought this up is because I'm going to see Elvis Costello, who, kind of a bucket list from a music perspective. But you know, Burt Bacharach, wow, Hall of Famer, yes,
Slam dunk.
right.
First ballot.
And there was one other kind of a minor note from the entertainment world saying that's a good thing. There weren't many from the world of sports, but Charles Kimbrough,
Yeah.
who actually had a good run on was the #1 show. I can't say I was a big loyal fan of it, but I did watch it a few times, and it was literally the #1 show in prime time 30 years ago. He played the character Jim Dial, which was kind of like a Herb Tarleton WKRP type role, right in the background, but pivotal to the
Character
show.
actor too.
86.
The character actor, standard guy, play the accountant, murdered somebody.
Of course.
Freeze, stick 'em up.
Right. Had to be in a Columbo somewhere too, right? Something.
Barnaby Jones. Yeah, okay. What, are you gonna chase me?
And he did.
Yeah.
And he always caught the guy. Yeah.
Freeze, put him up.
He caught a guy with sneakers on,
Right.
and he was running around.
Same thing as Cannon. Cannon chasing, right? William Conrad.
Which we watched every William Conrad episode of Cannon as kids.
Right.
Anyway, so those are our notable passings this week. And I just wanted to, like I said, Burt Bacharach was big for us because the first thing Steve, I, and my brother Tom did was text each other and gave the Austin Powers line.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Burt Bacharach.
Yeah. So, folks, let me just thank you again. And hopefully we're going to start having some of our loyal listeners join the show, you know, for a little segment. And because that's how much we appreciate you listening. And one other quick thing, my grandson Hudson, 6 months, tearing up spaghetti and meatballs already.
Wow.
It's kind of cute. Rob, I was going to send you the picture, but maybe we'll post it next week because it's
Chef Boyardee.
no. No. We ate out of cans.
Yes,
he doesn't
we
eat
did.
out of cans. Right?
Yes, we did.
But folks, thanks. And send us an email at sportswithmonoandmono@gmail.com. I had a bunch of new listeners I spoke to this week, and we thank you very much. And we'll catch up to you next week.
Enjoy the Super Bowl.
Yes. Good.